There's a game, I won't say which one, but there's a game that one of my kids played once, and like in the first 3 seconds there was a terrible interaction, and that was it. That was done. The game was done. We never went back to the game again.
Greetings and welcome to another episode of Safety is Redacted. Redacted?
That's not what this show is.
That's not what this show is called. Outtakes. No. Today, I am joined once again by the incomparable Rachel Kowert. Rachel, how the heck are we?
Good. I just saw you in the physical world last week, so I'm still riding on that high of in-person interaction.
Oh my gosh, real people, real life, real time is very exciting. And also exciting, this is a special series we are launching called Side Quests, all about gaming.
Yeah, my favorite kind of quests, side ones.
Side quests. I feel like my day is full of side quests. Like you have your schedule and that's set, but then the rest of the day is managing all the stuff that comes up in between your main quest. And you're like, I must eat lunch, right? I must pick up my kids at school. There's all these little mini side quests that are constant, but no trophies. So not as much fun as gaming. Just sometimes love and adoration.
Yes, we will give our love and adoration and not hungry to the people who are listening to this side quest.
No, I love it. Well, let's dive into it as we're thinking about what's going on in the gaming industry. You hit the big one on the head. I think a lot of people in gaming were at last week, and that's Games for Change in New York City.
It was lovely. The weather was beautiful. Right? Matt and I both separately went to see a show, which was great because we have to have a little play, a side quest in between our work.
You do.
But, Games for Change is one of my favorite events of the year. I think it was better this year than it's ever been. It was in a new location. You could overlook the water. I really liked the new space. What did you think about it?
No, this is my first Games for Change. I don't have a lot to compare it to. What was interesting is it was the same time as TrustCon. And so seeing a lot of my other professional peers who were at that event as well. And so for me, I was thinking about what are the juxtaposition and the difference between the two and why you would attend either one. And the big thing for me was interesting coming from Trust and Safety. I loved all the conversations about gaming and well-being, but it wasn't all like extreme intervention mental health, which the Trust and Safety came from. Like that was one of the issue verticals I supported at TikTok, was looking at suicide, self-harm. And so very familiar with that world and what it looks like in social media and online spaces. So to talk about just the state of play and the value that brings, to be able to talk about how games can reinforce these elements of well-being, how we can design for well-being, and just create these spaces where people feel like they belong, you can be part of something, and just the fact that you can play a game and have fun, and that's okay, was very exciting to be in that realm and not just feel the weight of the world and the challenges that face us online that we're constantly having to deal with.
Totally. I mean, I look forward to Games for Change every year on my travel calendar for that reason exactly. They call it a festival, and it actually feels like a festival. I feel like we're really celebrating, and the world's on fire, and we're going to talk about that later. And there's plenty of things to talk about when it comes to safety and job security and all the other things in the industry, but there's also a lot to celebrate, and Games for Change does that really well.
Yeah, and it was neat to see the companies there supporting this work from various roles. I love seeing the indie companies, or like the game jam that was in the back corner, so you can see all the new games that are being developed, how they're being developed. I'm really intrigued by, there's just some unique partnerships that you wouldn't expect, right? So like Gaming and Hunger, things like that are just not like traditionally within scope as we would see in the space. And to see how these partnerships, like how can we take just everyone's sort of common interests and map those out to these strategic global goals that we have as just humanity to try and make this world a little bit better.
That's it. And Games for Change has been doing that for a long time, like with the UN food program is what you're talking about. They announced a partnership there with them. And I think it just, again, amplifies the good instead of the less good, which you and I both, Trust and Safety is where we spend most of the hours of our day. And so it's a nice diversion from the everyday that we tend to work in.
Yeah. And you had, there's a couple things I want to touch on, but you had some big launches at this summit. I wonder if you can share a little bit. I'm very excited about these, but like the parenting programs and other stuff. I wonder if you could share some stuff about that.
For sure. So I was part of the relaunch of Raising Good Gamers, which is a Games for Change initiative. It's a multi-stakeholder initiative about creating resources and information for parents. And part of the launch was a white paper that I've been working on for the better part of a year, which kind of outlines everything you wanted to know about gaming but didn't know you wanted to ask. and as plain people language as a recovering academic can put it. So, talking about the research around fears around games and why we hold those fears, and maybe we're not asking the right questions when it comes to the main concerns that parents seem to have. And so, I was able to launch that and give a talk, and the paper is now live and free to read. It's called Raising Good Gamers, with another long title after it that I can't remember, something about parents and well-being, but you can get it at raisinggoodgamers.org. But I'm really proud of it because parents have had the same concerns for a long time, which means us as researchers have failed at getting the information out of the ivory tower and into the hands of parents. So hoping that this is a stepping stone in the right direction.
Yeah, well, something you've hit on that I really appreciate that I think we are starting to do better as an industry is just how do we get this resource into the hands of parents in a language that they
Yes.
all speak? And that seems to have been the disconnect for a very long time. And this stuff has existed oftentimes on a random web page or other stuff, but in terms of empowering or providing agency, here's how I can talk to my
Mhm.
kids about this. Here's how I could think about this in my own household. That seems to have been really the missing piece for a long time.
Totally. And that's what they're doing with the relaunch of the program generally. Arana Shapiro is the head of programming and education, I think is her title at Games for Change. And she's launching a bunch of workshops, for instance, in the local community for parents in and around games using this white paper as kind of the framework of moving forward. So, yeah, it's really that scientific translation piece, but also
Hmm.
talking to the parents. I mean, it's not, I would love to think there's lots of parents listening to this podcast, and I'm sure there is, but the average parent is probably not. So, how do we get to the average parent?
Yeah, 100%. The biggest challenge. It's historically, right? It's not been a problem until it's a problem, and then the parent is scrambling.
Mhm.
I also think too, one of the dangers is if a kid, on any random day spends too much time in the game. The most common thing I hear, like, "Oh, my kid's on a screen 3 hours a day. They're obviously addicted." Like, no, now
Yeah.
we're oversimplifying a challenge. How do we talk about
Yeah.
managing screen time, or where do we strike that balance? And I think that's the bigger issue I'm seeing with across the industry is how we talk about these games matters in any environment. So
Yes.
trying to better understand the behavior. I don't know what it was in the 90s, early 2000s. It's just like, I love ice cream. I'm addicted. And it just became this nomenclature that we adopted emphatically across the board. And it's like, no, like, can we talk about this constructively? What is the value it's adding? Because the flip side of
Yeah.
that, if someone really is having a challenge and they might be addicted or they could be using games to cope with something, it's much easier to understand and identify if we're able to define and lay out what's actually happening in that environment.
The words matter. I think
Words
that's what
matter.
you're getting at. They do. They do. So, what was your favorite part besides, of course, the launch of this lovely white paper that I'm sure you've read cover to cover? What was your favorite thing you saw, heard, experienced at the festival?
There were a few. I enjoyed the game section because I just always
Yeah.
love playing games. I never have enough time to play games, and so just to be around other developers and smaller developers, it doesn't mean that I liked every game that was there per se, but the fact that people are wanting to create and do stuff, I really just love the emphasis on play in general.
Mhm.
It's really interesting as an adult in particular to see sort of that disconnect that anything you do should be fun, right? Particularly if it's
Mhm.
around work, if it's around projects or other stuff, just to have that creative freedom to interact with others in a manner that you do, whether it was back in grade school or if you're doing a D&D campaign with your friends or just trying to normalize that concept. And I think as humans, we're very creative in general, and we tend to lose a lot of that just through the nature of our styles and interactions. And some folks, I give them credit, they're naturally that way 24/7. We'll call them theater kids. And then we have others like myself, who want to be in that realm, and then I just kind of get caught up in taking myself too seriously sometimes, and
Mhm.
just trying to be like, oh
Mhm.
no, like this, you should enjoy this, and yes, this should be fun, and there's a lot of different creative ways to express that. To that end, Barry's keynote on Sondheim. Hopefully, I got his
Yes.
name right, but it was. I'm excited to read his book and dive into that. But just the way he talked about just the love of puzzles and being
Yeah.
creative and how you can express that, and this idea of pushing our minds in different directions like that was just a lot of fun.
He was wearing a shirt. Didn't his shirt say appropriately obsessive? He had a
Yes,
funny t-shirt
I think
on.
so.
Yeah. Yeah.
That was
No,
really
that
good.
was good. That was really good. Yeah. One of my favorite things was the TIG evening event that you hosted.
Yay. Yeah, George
Yeah.
Osborne. I haven't looked forward to a conversation in a long time. I look forward to this one. I look forward to that one.
I
But I look
was,
forward to that
excuse
one.
me, sir.
I'm just saying. I mean, it's not every day you say like, "Well, you were number two." No, I look forward to
Yeah.
this as well. But like with
Yeah.
George, like to your point, in person, and in New
Yeah.
York. And it was the day after his book came out. And it's just such a fun, interesting human, great sense of humor. I encourage folks to check it out. So if you go to our TIG YouTube page, you can see the full conversation, and we'll put the audio out actually as a podcast as well. It's fascinating just to hear. I love hearing other perspectives on gaming, and to not only bring people in the room, have this conversation. Like, we had folks from gaming and fashion, we had folks from policy, from platforms, from the UN, and to be in the space and talk about not just what's happening in extremism and other places, but I'm really intrigued by his talking points around just tech, democracy, and gaming, and this idea of third spaces. In my own research, I've been obsessing over the loss of third spaces in our current
Mm,
culture, particularly in the US. As we see, like, I read a book recently talking about how, Major League Baseball and minor league teams are shrinking, and that used to be spaces we can hang out at. As you see economy declining and businesses closing, the coffee shops, or, like pub culture in the UK, you start to see things like that start to
mhm,
shrink. And the monoculture events are disappearing, right? So, like, World Cup is a beautiful example of a lot of people being engaged in one thing at one time. Even that is starting to erode. So where do we have these conversations, and how do we connect with individuals meaningfully? How do we have better conversations about politics and culture, and what's happening in
mhm.
society, that doesn't isolate individuals from being able to engage, or isolate them in a way that gets them radicalized in spaces that we know that they just shouldn't be in?
Yeah, absolutely. No, it was a great event, and it had a lot of good food. Just shout out to the
Oh
city.
my, good food. So for those of you who ever want to do event planning, several biases: have really good food, have a
Yes.
fun spots, and just invite good
Yes.
people.
Yeah, there
Yeah,
you go.
yeah.
That
And
winning formula right there.
I love your message. You're just like, can I invite anybody? I'm like, yes, bring them. Like, let's make it. And it ended up being a really good group of people that came
It
in.
did. It did. It was great.
Yeah.
Good job.
Yay. And George's book is out. Get books wherever
Yes,
they are
power
sold.
play. Yes, wherever books are sold, check it out for sure.
And it's, dear Lord, like, I knew he was funny. He was a lot funnier than I thought. That made me happy. I love those moments. Those are fun.
They are.
So speaking, we have G4C. We had some more announcements there. We had George's book, and my favorite one is, we are drowning in frameworks, in a good way. Think of it,
Oh,
we're like in a
in a
ball
good
pit of
way.
frameworks. We're in a ball pit of frameworks. Like, who doesn't love a good ball pit? More
Yeah.
so if you're the first one in than the last one. But the
Yes.
the idea, I don't know, like, they're most recently, I read your moderation standards you talked about yesterday. I'd love to talk about that. I think
Yeah.
2 weeks ago was the cheer framework, was another one that came out.
Yes.
These are a lot of framework. I had
I,
CGI. I
I
got to take
also
frameworks. There's
I
more.
also have the
There's more.
effect framework. There were three. I came out with three
Great.
frameworks in the last month. But listen, I'm in my framework era, I think is the way we're going to say it. It's so funny. When I was in grad school, there was a professor who said, when you're young and you're getting your PhD, like, everyone wants data, 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 data. Everybody wants to do this quantitative work. When you get older, you want to do theory. And I remember thinking so deeply, no, never. And now I published 3 frameworks in a month. So, also to those listening, to be fair, one of these was under peer review for a year. So it's not like I just busted out all these frameworks at the same time. This has been a long time coming. But um, the first one is the effect framework, which is how to make effective community codes of conduct. And then
Mhm.
I wrote a framework around reporting categories, which is directly built out of that work. So they're really related and tangential. And then Cheer is a framework about measuring community health, which is something you and I have been talking about for a really long time. And that one was under peer review for well over a year. So I'm very
Remember, yeah.
excited that it's finally out. But all of these, I really, in my acronym framework era, I'm just trying to get these conversations started. Like, I think in all 3 of these pieces, I open with the caveat, like, I don't have all the
Mhm.
answers, but this is the place to start. And this is what we know. And let's collate all this knowledge and set some really better standards for the industry. And I say better, not that the standards now are not good, but better as in we have a lot of theory and information
Mhm.
on how to make more effective community codes of conduct, on how this can be reflected in a consistency in the way that we have reporting categories. And sometimes it's just easier to have a piece of paper to point to and be like, okay, here's the starting point of this conversation. So that's what I'm hoping that they are really.
Yeah, you hit some really good points. Like the codes of conduct one, like, we'll start there. One is, yes, completely inconsistent across platforms and titles, which is a challenge. I think there's a desire to clean that up. It's going to take a lot of collaboration.
Yeah.
Example would be, code of conduct on, like, PlayStation as a console, and then the games that are on PlayStation as well, right? And
Yeah.
there's, between privacy laws and other stuff, what you may violate as a rule in the community on that title may or may not violate a rule in the PlayStation community as well. And
Right.
where that might present as a signal is if a PlayStation gets a report for a username violation, but in reality, this person has been reporting the same account on, let's say, Fortnite forever, and they're not getting the response they want. So now they're trying to go to PlayStation just to get some type of reaction. So
Hmm.
looking for ways to clarify that signal, to understand what players are really struggling with, and get to the root cause of the problem. And so
Yeah,
much of that, I think, can be streamlined. And one of the areas is just having, if we have consistent codes of conduct or rules of enforcement in terms of service, where we post those. We've moved that very quickly. What I love about gaming is where you post those matters, right? Because it's one thing
for
to be in
sure.
a waiting room and think, oh, here are all the rules on there. By the way, I'm totally just paraphrasing your article if you want to take this and put it on there. Not entirely original thoughts, though. I'll pretend they are. But then, like, are they in the waiting room? Is it reinforced for the game? And I don't know if you referenced this, but I was talking to someone, and one of the rules of enforcement was just like on a poster, like a propaganda poster within the game experience itself. And so just trying to find creative ways to embed this stuff consistently within the
Yeah.
experience.
Different touch points. And I mean, my kids, I have 3 kids, 11 and under, recently really into Fortnite. And what Fortnite does really well with their codes of conduct is on the splash screens, on the loading screens, it's not
Mm,
even every single one. It's like RNG, you may get it, you may not. It regurgitates a piece of the code of conduct, but in different language, like simpler language, easier
mhm,
language. And you only get it every once in a while. And it's like, you're on a loading screen, your eyes are idle. Like that's perfect captive audience time to just have a
mhm,
quick reminder of one piece of what you're trying to foster there in your community. So there are certainly a lot of places that we can grow and learn as an industry, and particularly with the effect framework about how to make effective codes of conduct. I draw on a lot of work
mhm,
with Eleanor Ostrom, which is about self-governing communities. There is a lot of research. She was a Nobel Prize winner. Like there's a
mhm,
lot of research about how we understand how communities self-govern. So we can really optimize how we're approaching it instead of thinking of it as a legal
mhm,
compliance document, which is really the primary framework that it's had up to this
mhm.
point.
No, and that's where all of our codes of conduct started from, right? Was those legal frameworks, because
Yes.
compliance said you
Right.
must have this. And now with gaming, I feel like more than other social experiences, having something guide community health or guide
Yes.
community structure, because at the end of the day, we're all interacting in these spaces. We're all coming together for these common experiences. So how do we best design those in order to have the best experience possible, to level
That's
up our
it.
characters and to have fun and to play and grow and expand? But that's the whole essence of thriving, right? Is that I'm playing the game, I'm getting better, I'm making positive connections, and we're then creating these loops that sort of reinforce each other, in terms of how we interact and what we're getting out of the game, and how we want to exist together. And I think tying it together with the cheer model, as we think about all of these being interconnected in a way,
Hmm.
is what are the things that sort of create and foster those loops and foster those
Yep.
positive social interactions. And it's what I love about the work that you pulled from is this idea that no, these things all exist offline somewhere, right?
Yes.
So it's not like we're creating anything new. We're just taking existing human social structures and applying them to
Yes.
gaming environments.
Exactly. Let's do it. And not a lot of studios, some employ psychologists, but not all of them employ psychologists. So I'm
Mhm.
just here as your friendly neighborhood psychologist to just bring that all together and put it out in the world. And now they can do with it as they wish.
Yeah, I know. Maybe if you're in a new studio, you can't afford a psychologist, right? You just need like this.
No,
Here's the research and resources you need. Yeah.
that's it. And it's open
Um,
access because I told you I was a friendly neighborhood psychologist. So there you
Friendly.
go.
The cheer framework is interesting. So just preemptive, if you haven't read it, it's long in the sense
Yes.
that you brain dumped a ton of different categories. And
Yes.
so
Yes.
I'm curious. Like we've had internal conversations at TIG, and how we think it could be used. And I think I mentioned with you, there's a project our pro social fellows doing, and trying to pick, hey, there's some categories in Rachel's research you should look at. But I'm kind of curious your thinking, because when you have something that big, like how should folks
Hmm.
go about engaging or utilizing that within their own platform or experience?
Great question. So CHEER stands for Community Health, Ecosystem, Environment, Ecosystem, Resilience. That's not right. Ecosystems, Engagement. I can't even remember my own acronyms. And Resilience. The idea of putting this together is that you can't just judge from one metric. So a lot of times it'll be
Mhm,
like playtime or spend, and those are both engagement metrics. We also need to look at ecosystem health. Can people stay through conflict or crisis? Are new members onboarding successfully? Are they leaving right away? Do you have a healthy establishment of veteran members? Are they helping onboard the new members? Like there's lots of things we can look at in terms of seeing if your community is quote unquote healthy. how do we get there? Like, I do lay out a bunch of metrics, and I do that on purpose because not all studios measure all of these things, nor do they have the bandwidth in order to do so. So at the end of the piece, I even say, okay, if you want to start with one, start with engagement. It's probably the thing you're already measuring, but let's not just do one metric. Let's look at several metrics. Let's look at recidivism in addition to engagement and play time and spend time or whatever. The idea being eventually you look at the whole, because if one is doing good and one is doing less good, that tells you something totally different than if you only looked at the one in isolation. And again, that one definitely has the caveat of like, I'm just going to throw a bunch of suggestions of things you could be measuring. There might be other things. There might be things I've missed. Or maybe you look at this and you're like, oh, actually, I'm already measuring that. How come I'm not looking at it? And I expect every studio would be different, but those general buckets are a good place to start in terms of getting a more full picture of what's happening in your communities instead of just one piece of it.
And that's the key that I appreciate about it. I'm glad to point it to you because it's like, hey, what are and maybe it's 3, maybe it's 4, maybe it's 10. As you start to evaluate and collect data, I mean, 30 days is a decent sample to start from. But as you start to collect data and be like, is our community healthy? What are the types of interactions? Like whether it is spend or recidivism or, player retention, the multiple variables that can indicate health. And so trying to determine if the matchmaking feature is an indicator of platform success versus overall player retention. There's all these different arcs of data we can follow. So I think being able to pick and choose what you want out of there to determine what's healthy in this type of experience is a huge one.
Totally. And you also touched on a point of the last framework that I talked about this month, which was about reporting categories, which is it is going to vary depending on your game, depending on the genre, depending on the age of your community, all of these things. And it is meant to be flexible. It's just not meant to be in singularity, right?
No, very much so. And that's the hardest part about community health when I talk to folks is you can't have any one metric. It's got to be multiple data points. And I almost see like a weird like plot diagram that you're kind of looking at. Are you in this quadrant or are you in this quadrant? And then what you're trying to do is see if you can work up over here. So the overall interactions tend to be more positive than negative within a whole. Because it's, I think one of the stats we share is if someone needs 5 positive experiences to overcome 1 negative experience. And so we think about community health. If you have a player who has been through overall positive experience in the game and you get one person come in trying to ruin it, or maybe just a game goes sideways, that's not going to be a big deal. It's just like life. It's just like, oh, you stub your toe on the couch. Yes, it sucks. And you might swear for the next 30 seconds, but you're like, whatever, you're not going to take the couch, throw it out front and set it on fire, hopefully. Right. And those are the kind of things that we're trying to avoid. I don't recommend that. Yeah. It's not,
but it's a good point. Yes. Well, there's a game, I won't say which one, but there's a game that one of my kids played once, and like in the first 3 seconds, there was a terrible interaction, and that was it. That was done. The game was done. We never went back to the game again. And it's because that was like the initial impression. And so we want to avoid that because that didn't even have the opportunity to get the 5 to make up the 1 because it opened with the 1. Like if you're on the show floor and you stub your toe on the couch, you're not going to buy that couch.
Totally. Yes. Couch. Totally different experience. Yep. Yeah. Yes. That is not a good first impression. Couch already hates me. I don't want to bite you. Like, you're not comfortable. I can't invite my guests to sit on you. You're trying to kill me.
They'll all stub their toes.
No. I'm about to give this couch an entire backstory at this point. As we think about as we're the abundance of frameworks, one thing that we're not going to have as much of anymore seems to be physical media. Oh, and particularly in games. Like this was a big announcement, I think 2 weeks ago now from PlayStation.
Yeah. I'm sad about it. I haven't even bought physical media in a long time, but I really struggle with not having physical movies. So I think I've talked about this before. Amadeus is my favorite movie ever of all time. It's impossible to find. We eventually tracked it down, whatever. We had to buy it. It was $30. We had to buy it. And then whatever happened, long story, like I didn't have access to it. Something happened and then that was it. And it was gone. So it's like, you don't even ever really own anything ever. And that just like really frustrates me. And so it feels like the end of owning something tangible,
Yeah, no, I mean, for me, as I've collected vinyl for a very long time, we still have our CDs, and as much as I've been able to turn those into like digital copies, so we have our digital archive, but just the act of pulling out a record and saying, I'm going to listen to this and putting it on the turntable. Same for movies. Like I do have some of my VHS left that I saved, and at some point I transitioned all my VHS to DVD and related those out. But I like the idea of just going to the cabinet and having that movie there versus what I've
Yeah.
run into with these streaming services. It's like, oh, I'll purchase this film. All of a sudden, the streaming rights change and I don't
That's
have
it.
access anymore. Same with we had a Nintendo Switch One, and most of our games are physical, some of them are not, and then it just junked out, and it's like, all right, well, now I don't have this game. And
Yep.
purchasing, do we purchase under the main account or was it under a sub account? Can I port it to other devices? So just to have that, I've bought this. It is now mine to play as much as I want versus this
Yes.
movement we're seeing of death by subscriptions. Like, how many things can we
Yeah.
pay for monthly, whether it's our car, our radio, our
Yeah.
entertainment? Seems to kind of be in that vein.
And I love my, what do they call it? The PlayStation Pass, the Game Pass. I
Hmm.
love my Game
Yeah,
Pass. The Game Pass is
same.
great, but like, what if I want to just like buy it? Like, I have purchased 3 digital copies of Animal Crossing, at least 3 across all the different devices and
Hmm.
things. And it's like, just owned one. Yeah,
I will say
Nintendo.
that's my only beef with Minecraft is you got to buy it's licensed by device. And
Oh, I own
if
at least 5 versions of Minecraft.
yeah. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. With the child who has multiple computers and devices over the years, I'm just like, wait, I gotta buy it again.
Well,
I'll talk to
yeah.
Minecraft directly about that one.
Yeah, call them up.
I have
Call them up, see what you
feelings.
can do
We'll
about
call
it.
them. We'll see. I'm sure they'll take my call right away.
Oh, for sure. But you know what also is about the physical media? It's like the extras. Like, I remember
Hmm.
the last GTA 20 years ago,
Hmm.
it came with a poster. Like, I remember opening and
Yeah.
having the poster, and like, we're not going to have that anymore because that's just
Yeah, just
gone.
those tangible media experiences. Like same thing with
Yeah.
some of the records I have still have like the original posters in it. And one of them was a
Yeah.
promotional copy, so it had a actually typewritten letter that the record company would send to the studios. So when
So
they're reading like
cool.
who influenced this artist and what kind of music they like, what is their sound, so if they chose to play it, it would give them some background on them. And yeah, in the games, I remember the posters would come in the game. Same with Nintendo. Nintendo cartridges, you get the booklets and you give story and how to play it,
Yeah.
and have backstories of the characters. And so there's all these little like kind of fun things that, at least for me, made me a little bit more invested in what was happening and the art of the packaging. There's all these little elements in there that I think it's
Yeah.
harder to tell. I'll be curious to long play. I definitely get the expense aspect of it. I'm trying
For
to
sure.
talk to more gamers who, like in the current state, like there's a lot of backlash
Yeah.
and pushback. We've seen Xbox has pivoted in terms of where and how they're offering games in their space. Nintendo, I feel like, is going to lean in to their little cartridge thing, but they've been a cartridge company since they've started.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
so, how this plays out in the space, or if people get more like, no, I want my media, I think there's still
We'll
a little
see.
bit of time to go before we're either happy with it or it's like, now we're all done.
Yeah, maybe like my kids, the new generation of gamers, I don't think they really care at all, but
Hmm.
we'll see. Maybe they will when they don't have access to their games month after month.
Yeah. Well, the biggest thing that I'm talking to folks, and this has been true for a while, if any of this requires me to buy a new gaming system or more regularly buy some kind or build a new computer or upgrade my processor or whatever it is, I think that's something that's going to end up breaking a lot of people, because
Yes,
the cost of this equipment is not going down.
it's unbelievable. The cost. I have a Steam Deck that I got several years ago, and it was like $800 when I bought it, and now they just raised the price to like $1,200 or something. It's like, guys, we can't afford it. It's very expensive.
That's the one and that's where I like my head is at. I'm like, well, I kind of want a Steam Deck, but then all my friends are like the new Splatoon is blowing up. So all my friends are like, you got to get a Switch 2, which I kind of want,
Yeah.
but I've already went all in on the Switch 1, and I'm like, I know it'll be better, but we have the PS5. My son built a gaming
Yeah.
computer. I know I sound like I'm wealthy. We're obsessed with games, but yeah, it's like how many devices, how many rooms, how much equipment.
But
Yeah,
I mean,
yeah,
especially so like I have a bunch of kids and they all want to play at the same time. And it's like, what do
yeah,
you and I can't buy you each an individual device and we only have one TV. So
yeah.
figure it out. Yeah, it's tough. We'll see. Yeah, I guess.
We're working on that. Well,
Yeah.
speaking of industry, there's a lot going on. We saw a few weeks ago with Xbox had some layoffs. We've seen Meta had some layoffs. Even other companies we've seen across the board of folks, just teams realigning. Obviously, a big focus on AI. Kind of curious, some folks you're talking to, or like, what does this mean for our space? What does it mean for games? What does it mean for the future of gaming, gaming safety? There's
I
a
don't
lot to consider.
know. Well, especially gaming safety. I'm very worried because the layoffs disproportionately seem
Yeah.
to impact safety and accessibility, which are the two things I care most about. So that's upsetting.
Yeah.
There's also a lot of conversations around AI and art, for instance, that's happening in the
Yeah.
industry, and the fact that you can't even there's not even job security working on a team with a successful game. We're talking about, was it South
Mhm.
by Midnight? Double Fine bought themselves back. Ninja Theory. It's really wild. I don't even know what to think anymore. I think just because we've had the layoff conversation for the last
Yeah.
years, and it just never stops. This conversation.
Yeah. Well, we did see, I mean, we saw a big boom happen during the pandemic, where a lot of folks went online, 2020 to about 23. And so a lot of this does feel to a small degree like market correction. And definitely just conversations we had looking at the teams, there seems to be a bigger focus on what AI could mean for this space, whether it's better
Yeah.
moderation, whether it's using it within design elements. I think there's a lot of forward thinking individuals who like, hey, let's do this now with the realization it might take us a few years to get there. I know from a design perspective, talking to people way smarter than me, like AI is not there yet. Although I have no doubt it's being used in that element. And so
Yeah.
then now it's a matter of it feels like just the market trying to be like, all right, we have a lot of people who work in this space. We don't need as many folks. Like we can optimize this here. Particularly from a business standpoint, it's hard to justify it in some ways. But the flip side of it, when 80% of your budget is usually humans and payroll and all the expenses that come with that, it's also the easiest way at the end of the year. Hey, we need to show we're in the black. What can we do? Well, let's lay off some folks, or if we have redundant roles or other stuff, and then see if we can kind of align and make sure we have a positive end of year report.
Yeah, but I hate that. Okay. So
Oh,
in
I
New
didn't say it was
York,
good. Yeah, yeah.
in New York, I took a picture. I don't know if I showed it to you. I walked past this billboard on the way to the event, and it said, "Stop hiring humans." And it was a picture of a human looking woman, but with like a purple eyeball. I guess she was supposed to look like she was and it was an AI company. I was like, "Stop hiring humans. We have to eat and work." Like, very dystopian.
Yeah. Well, there was an interview the other day with where Elon was talking about. He's like, he think money was going to be gone by 2036, and the reporter was trying to get him to explain that. And the whole idea was that, well, if we have AI and robots and other stuff who are doing all the things that we don't want to do, then ideally, like what's left is the things that we want to do. And he said, what do we need money for? If there's an abundance of stuff, which I call like the Star Trek principle. That was the whole, like, you're in the future, you can
Mhm.
replicate whatever. But he said the whole point of money is to get stuff. And if we have more stuff than we actually need, he said, what's the point of having it if everyone has what they need? Which to me is right in between like dystopian and too good to be true. Because at the end of the day, like the part of being human is creating and being part of and having a sense of purpose and connection. And so
Mhm.
trying to balance that out of what I think that's where humans are struggling. Like, what does our future look like? What are the things we're going to be
Yeah.
able to do? How do we find a place to give back and have purpose and add value in order so our lives feel meaningful and not just this thing that we consume?
Well, on that note, let's talk about the things let's talk about the things we're
Too
doing.
positive?
We
Too
have
positive?
no, there are some things that you and I are doing right now that are providing a lot
There
of meaning.
are.
So I guess we need to lean into that. Before we run out of time, I for sure want to talk about what you're planning in September.
Yeah, no, I'm glad you're looking at time. The Helsinki, Finland, the Digital Thriving Summit, TIG's first summit. I'm excited for this for multiple reasons. Number one, it's happening. So when I got hired, this is one of the ideas that I pitched of like, how do we bring people together to talk about specifically design? But I love the idea of having a smaller room, intentional conversations. And that's what we did. And very grateful for Supercell to be hosting this event at their headquarters there in Helsinki. Found out it's during Nordic Business Week. So we have, it's going to be a happening city that week as well. And we have folks from multiple walks. If you're familiar, so Kim Bull, one of our co-founders, amazing gaming knowledge and industry experience, giving our keynotes. We have Dan Cook, Natasha Miller, Wes Hart, folks from that game company, Vanessa Himovich, as well as Activision and a few others coming in who are sharing data, which is very exciting. That's always one of the hardest things to do. And insights. What does pro social look like? We have some various workshops that are happening. And then, yeah, you're going to be talking about your new project, the DLC.
I am the DLC leadership program, which is a training program for community leaders. Talking about safety, the social layer of our trust and safety stack. And we just finished the pilot, and I'm excited. I'm going to be presenting the data from that. Essentially, people learned things, and it was great, and they're having a good time. I'll be very excited to share that with everybody who's in the room, and see how we can continue to support what are essentially the social workers of the internet, the people keeping our gaming communities together.
Yeah, and I'm excited because you'll be sharing some data and insights. And I think the number one question that I get with my work and pro social that I'm sure you're getting as well, and then I know you discovered in some of the stuff you shared, is A, why does this matter? But more
Yeah.
importantly, what is the business case for why this matters?
Yeah.
And I think that's the validation piece a lot of folks are looking for. Because what I've heard
Yeah.
most commonly is like, well, yeah, we all know that we should do it, but what's the business implication? Why should I do it? And that's the justification, in an industry that's heavily data driven. As we start to
That's
make the
it.
argument of why this work is important, it's just like, no, like here are the reasons right here.
Yeah. Go watch my GDC talk from last year where I talk a lot about that. But you and I know, and maybe the listeners don't. So here's a short version. I mean, community managers are setting the tone and essentially the vibes of your community. And
Mhm.
if you want a space that is kind and welcoming and fosters long-term engagement for the community within it, it's really important that those people are supported and trained and able to do their job effectively. So
Mhm.
essentially, in like the pitch deck for the DLC, when I'm like, come invest and be part of what we're doing here, it's like you're going to have better retention of your staff and your employees in the community level. You're going to have greater engagement over time of your player base. You're going to have lower rates of disruption, which
Mhm.
means, drum roll, more thriving, I guess would be how you
Very
would
much so.
surmise that. Yeah.
No, and everything's community now, right? Whatever the brand, the organization, the event, the show, Comic Con, like you pick it, it's all about community development, human connection, and that's why I truly believe the
Yeah.
future of gaming is social because it's going to be about shared connection, shared values, shared
Yes.
experiences that bring people together, whether they're in the game itself or hanging out in Reddit, Discord, Twitch. Like it's going to be that shared experience that brings them together, and that sense of community.
That's it. That's it. And like the way this program was made, we interviewed a lot of people. We asked what they wanted and what they needed. It's free for them to take, which is, an incredible barrier that has kept people from doing this kind of training. And yeah, we're seeing some really exciting results. So I'm excited to share it in the room. And then I think these sessions will be recorded and then live in the world after that.
Yeah.
Is that correct? Yeah.
We will, yeah. So those sessions we have permission to record, we'll definitely put those out into the wild and publish after the event. So
Great.
encourage folks to check that out. If you're able to go, feel free to reach out to us over at TIG. And we have a handful of seats left. The room's capped at 100 people. We're not going to go any bigger than that, but we have a really cool 3 days planned there in Finland. And if you just want to hang out in Finland in the fall, which is really nice, come spend a few extra days and just
We'll we'll
enjoy
be
being in
there.
another country.
Sounds
Yeah,
great.
we'll be there. Come hang out with us. Like it'll be cool.
Mhm.
One thing I want to ask you about because they just finalized the date, and I would love
Yes.
to. We don't have to go into too deep, but this is a seminal moment in gaming. Grand Theft Auto, November 2026.
I will be taking time off. My out of office email will be on. I'm so excited. So here's the thing about Grand Theft Auto. I don't actually like playing it because if I have more than 2 stars, I get really anxious and I just dislike it. And I can't get away and I start running into things and I can't get my car
Yeah,
painted and it's a whole thing. I love watching my husband play it. I love GTA games. I love how open world they are. I love the story of them. I love the humor of them. I'm so psyched. Are you?
I very much so. One is I have not played in a while, which is my fault.
It's
But the
20
fact
years old. It's
it
okay.
is, that's okay. I had some
Yeah.
time, but to see the amount of people I'm seeing excited about a game coming out is very again back to monoculture events from earlier. I'm
Yeah.
fired up to hopefully have folks come together and just have another wonderful shared experience in this gaming world.
Yeah. I'm excited. It's been a long time coming. But also a lot of the work that I do is vocal advocacy in and around games and the
Mhm.
science of games. So I imagine my schedule, that's why I have to put the out of office because I think everyone's going to want to be talking about Grand Theft Auto. No, it will not transform your children into being criminals. We'll just preempt that with that little soundbite and we can just send
Yeah.
that out.
Yeah, it's funny when I talk about pro-social behaviors and specifically sometimes I'll cite examples from Grand Theft Auto 5 and I'll start pulling up there and I said, and now in the real world, this sounds terrible. But within the gaming world, here's how players are working together to help out friends and teammates sort of level up their character, understand the game world better, and sort of kind of create their own niche so they have a good gaming experience. And I think that's why this game has a certain rating, and you should be a certain age to play it to kind of
Right.
understand
For
the
sure.
difference. But within that, it's pro social can exist in any environment, regardless of what the gameplay or game
Yes.
style is like. So that'll
Yes.
always be the challenge for sure.
For sure. And I love you mentioned that because I did a podcast a few months ago. It was a parenting podcast with two moms who have kids who game, but they don't know anything about games. And they asked me a surprise question at the end, and they said, "What's one game that is like better than we think it is, or is really misunderstood?" And I said Grand Theft Auto, and their faces were like, "What?" And I was like, "Hear me out." And they were like, "Oh my God, my kids are going to be so excited when they hear this podcast episode." And I was like, "It is still for 17 and up. Okay, let's
Yeah.
not get wild." But yeah, misunderstood for sure.
No, I love it. My favorite thing is looking at the publication schedule because it was September, and if you look at the game
Yes.
release schedule, and then it was like Grand Theft Auto, and then like nothing for a month.
Yeah,
And so
because
then
they
it was right
know.
after that they moved to November. And so yeah, I think over at least the holiday season here in the US, I have a feeling I know what a lot of people are going to be doing.
Out of office.
Out of
I think is
office.
what I'm sensing.
Yeah.
Yeah. Very
Cool.
good.
Well, Rachel, thank you so much. This is a nice
Thank
little
you.
side quest. I had some fun today. I think we'll have to do
Yes.
this one again.
Yeah, sounds great.
Spoiler alert, we're doing this again. Not too soon. There's more to happen in the industry. But hey, Rachel, for folks who want to learn more about you or find you online, where can they go?
You can find me on LinkedIn, Rachel Kowert. You can find more about me at rkowert.com, or the DLC Leadership Program is dlcleadership.org.
I love it. And if you want to sign up for a newsletter, you'll get all the updates that we talked about today and more. It's pretty amazing.
Yeah.
I love it. Well, Rachel, thank you very much for your time.
Thank you for having me.
Absolutely. And thank you everyone for listening. Have a wonderful day.